Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're gonna talk about Arri Alexa 35. So let's dive deep into it. So that Alexa 35 is basically a new camera launched by Arri that is in July 2022. Yeah, it's a bit old, I'm a bit late to it, but you have to understand this puppy is not for everybody because the base body, just a nude body starts at $78,000. It's not an easy camera, it's not a cheap camera. It's for those sort of people who can actually say, like, if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it. Like, it's genuinely that expensive. Now, why is such a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because Arri generally is a very conservative kind of company. Whenever they launch something, they are absolutely damn sure this is going to be awesome, and their track records and their history proves it that they came in late. They came in after Panavision figured out how to make digital cameras, but somehow they bitch slapped Panavision out of existence. So Arri does know what they are doing, and they looked into a ecosystem, digital camera ecosystem, and realized people were going chasing too much functions, as in like this frame rate and all that, not colors. And color is the key of cinema. So they figured out very early on that we're gonna use good pixels rather than high numbers of pixels. So no resolution chasing. They were really behind schedule. Like, they were still giving you 2K cameras in the era of like 4K or 8K, and they were very successful with that. So this is the first time they have introduced a new sensor technology, meaning if you look into RE65, Alexa 65, Alexa large format, Alexa mini large format, Alexa XFX, Alexa mini, all these three sensors, all of them are just running on one technology. This is the first time after so many years, as in like from 2010, they have introduced a new puppy, that is Alexa 35. This puppy, it's a new sensor design, like and they get their sensor made from on semiconductor. So they must be damn sure that this is genuinely wow, only then they will upgrade it. And there was a lot of demand from industry professionals because of the requirement from Netflix and Hulu and all that streaming services. Is like your raw file must be around 4K. It has to be 4K. You cannot just take a 2K Alexa camera and stretch it to 4K and give it. No. For that reason, Ari had to do it. So they jumped it, and the sensor named is ALEV 4th sensor. So this sensor from now on, basically refresh of all these puppy will happen eventually. So now the next generation sensors will be LF4 sensor. Now Super 35 sounds very odd. So you have to understand, back in the old days when we used to use this puppy, is that in your stills camera you go khachang 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 like this, but in cinema camera it goes rrr. So generally the space available per frame is much lower. So that's why Super 35. It's almost the same size of basically APS-C. Think of it in that way. So you take a roll and you roll it top to bottom. That's how you get your Super 35 APS-C size. And again, some similar thing also happens for large format. For example, like this. If you take something like this, which is around, this one is not 70 millimeter, but imagine this is 70 millimeter. If you shoot it like this, like other large format cameras, it will be called normal 70 millimeter. But if you go to IMAX instead of running them like this from top to bottom, they run it like this. That's why the IMAX 70 millimeter is IMAX 70 millimeter 15 perforation, so that it has 15 holes. So, and normal scenario, it could be, if it's ultra wide, it could be as low as like 3 holes. So you have to understand, many times you can have same number representing two different things. So Super 35 3x2 sensor, which is generic size, I think at this point in time, you have to spend money to find sensor that is not this size. 4.6K, and this should be the another, whoa, this is July 22 from the brand, from the Arri, and they are only 4.6K in the world where even Blackmagic can actually give you 12K sensor. Your mobile phone can easily cross 4K. 4.6K, and that's also on an APS-C. Not that amazing. And they're open gate, meaning if you're capturing the whole sensor, only goes up to 75 FPS. And be mindful that is an Arri RAW, not in ProRes. In ProRes, your FPS will drop to 60 FPS. Now, if you go to 4K, which again requires in the streaming space, it goes up to 120 FPS. Not that wow compared for the price, but there is a reason for that, and it will become clear as I more dive deep into it. Now, Arri RAW is a very unique kind of format where it does not make a video. Like from the file point of view, if you actually look into the file is not like a video file. It's not even like a broken video file like a RED, because RED still somehow has not upgraded from FAT files. So 4GB chunks, it always makes 4GB chunks. This camera literally captures stills, full stills, and stores it as a frame. Every shot is literally a frame, independent, which you can actually pull out and you can like give it to any editor and like post it in a magazine. You can do that. And yes, some modeling shoot, they have tried to actually do this, and it does work. It does work. So when you're looking at Arri Raw, it's a folder which has all the frames as a individual raw file. You can, of course, the container is different, but it can be opened and processed directly. So that's Arri raw format, custom to them. And then they do understand it. Like, you built a custom format, it's really awesome, amazing, all that. But SD, not everybody has that sort of time vector where they can be like, okay, we take the file, we crunch the file, we fine tune the file, then we go to editing. Someone's like, no, bro, photo, video, done. Shoot, video, edit. So for that reason, they also support ProRes, and they support the maximum ProRes can support, that is ProRes 4444XQ. This is the highest Apple has ever allowed. So this camera is like, bro, I got this. So why is such a big deal about this camera? Well, 17 stops of dynamic range. Let that sink in. 17 plus stops of dynamic range. Majority of camera will claim 14 and deliver 12. Arri, as a camera company, as a digital camera company, digital cinema camera company, is very conservative. So when they say it's like 14 stops of dynamic range, it will be 14 stops of dynamic range. Now, if they go from 14 to 17, that's like, that's huge. That's freakishly huge. That means your latitude has just got multiplied by 2.5x. It's huge. So 17 stops of dynamic range from Arri, that's like, whoa. That's like, yeah, there are companies that claim 14 stop, 16 stop, but be mindful, Blackmagic has a 12K camera. How many of you use that? Or how many have you ever seen being used? That's the reason. So whenever Arri says something, there is a very good chance of believing it. And Arri does require some new horsepower, like their Codex Compact card has to be upgraded. So the card that they take used to be 1 terabyte maximum. Now it went to 2 terabyte, which they have specified is internally 2 SSDs are running. So that allows them higher FPS. So if you have only 1 terabyte card, you cannot get the maximum FPS allowed, because how they are storing it is basically in that 2 terabyte version, there is 2 SSD. So they write one frame to SSD A. By the time it's still writing, it dumps the file second frame into frame B. So that's how they get a very high throughput. I have no idea why they are not jumping into actual NVMe industrial enterprise grade, but they have their own proprietary. But it is what it is. You have to buy 2 terabyte one to get full horsepower. If you have 1 terabyte from the older versions, you will be limited in FPS. And this is the Giga Daddy version, that is like Alexa 65, which is literally same size as iMac, almost like a iMac sensor. Like, this is, if you really want that iMac feel organically rather than just stretching a file, this is how you're gonna get it. So it's huge, like it's freakishly huge. So this is Alexa 35. So what quality? Well, this is where you have to understand the camera Arri is from a brand. That brand has been making lenses, has been making cinema gear and renting those puppies out for decades. Same as Panavision. So these camera company literally had an ecosystem where they're like, okay, we have the lens, we have they will not make the film themselves. They will go to Kodak and they'll sort it out. It's like, how many manufacturers are there? They did all of those. So they were very critical enabler. So once the company, basically industry, started to switch from film to digital, they were stuck in a position. It's like, what the hell we do? So both company, Panavision and Arri, jumped into digital. However, Panavision jumped in first and they worked with Sony, because be mindful, these companies are not semiconductor company. They cannot make sensor. So they all like Panavision jumped with Sony and Arri jumped with on semiconductor to make the sensors. And both of them developed their own camera, cinema camera. And it was from day one, it was the cinema camera made for rich people, not even targeted for like entry level or something like that. They knew, because they were basically doing what Sony is doing in the field, and Sony has much larger budget. So they really focused into it. Now Panavision went all out, like they wanted to do everything and they did not focus on it. Arri was very clear. It's like, we know that people are still shooting, and be mindful, still means in 2023, still shooting, many of the films are shot in reels, and that is still running at 24 frames per second. So FPS is not that important. Resolution is not that important. What is important is the quality of image. If you can give quality image, everybody will use it, and that's what Arri focused on. The first sensor they got out to the public, it was so leaps and bounds ahead of it that everybody is still using it. And be mindful, it's not very high resolution, but people still use it. Like you can see in John Wick, the like optically amazing imagery I have seen is from Dune, the recent times, and again Arri. So you always have to understand, if Arri says it's good quality, well, they have enough Oscars and enough top movies that they are like, bro, we do not need to prove it. Like, we got it, we good. And what is the selling point of this exact model? Why is such a big deal? Well, it figured out film highlight role. For example, whenever you take a film and if you overexpose it, interesting part, it will get overexposed. That's normal. It will overexpose. So for example, let's say I'm in the sunlight and this part gets overexposed. It will be overexposed, but it will not look ugly. Why not? Well, in digital, when this overexposes, the area that is around it will be very very dirty. It will not like digitally, data will not transition there correctly, and you will get weird artifacting here. Well, look, it will look digital. Let that be very clear. It will look digital. Now, is there a way to sort that in digital camera? Absolutely. You just move your gray point up. Basically, you basically reduce your ISO. It does work. Problem is, digital cameras have amazing ability to see in the dark. Negatives do not see in the dark. Like, no. Just no. You can buy a 6400 ISO and compare that to a 6400 ISO of a full frame modern digital camera. You'll be like, one is a night vision, one is like, I think I can see something. It's like mind-bogglingly how low light performance is there in digital camera, and it was always there. Like from day one, it was. That's how many early digital cinema cameras were focusing on that. They knew it's like we can't compete in the daytime shooting, but they knew at low light we are like we the king. So if you make your gray point such that you get film level highlight roll off, your shadow becomes black. That was always been the issue. Arri did really good with 14 stops of dynamic range, but they really needed to fit where people are like, no, shut up, take money. Like, this is it. It needs highlight film roll off while having low light. Basically, your shadow should not become black. So they achieved it. Why? Because they have the dynamic range. This is how the dynamic range, and they also had to rebuild the color space so you can actually map the color properly. All of those things allow this company to actually give you something that no negative can do. Negative can give you amazing like Dunkirk, like everything is bright. This can give you that same thing while possessing enough shadow detail where it's like, bro, you can see everything and one shot. So that is mind-bogglingly whoa. And it is an industry standard. Like, you do not worry about it. Like, you do not discuss it. You do not say like, oh, I have this camera, will it work? No, this is industry. From John Wick to everything, like it is what it is. Like, you do not have to worry about it. So that's the quality side of things. So they have, because again, they are building a new color system, reveal color science. You have to understand, camera sensor can give you a mathematical data. That mathematical data requires a container to, like, transport it between things. Like, your monitor also requires a container, your printer requires a container, your projector requires a container. So it goes through Arri color engine. Now this is the secret sauce. On Semiconductor is not a unique company. Heck, you can go and buy a sensor from them, and many companies do. It's just that this color science, this level color science, that's the key part. For example, if you are watching this video on YouTube and it's in normal standard definition, it is using color space known as Rec 709. Rec 709 is standard color space dimensions. Awesome, it works. If you want to go to HDR, if you have TV like this which has HDR and you're watching anything like from Netflix or any streaming service which triggers that HDR logo there, it will be using color space that is Rec 2020, much larger color space. So it has much more oomph, like it actually has color to show. That's awesome. When people say like richer and vibrant does not mean brighter color, it means richer color. So it needs color space where it has like, okay, I have the data. Now, Arri wide gamut AWG is even bigger than Rec 2020. So it's genuinely, it has enough place to store all that data. And to allow that, they are going from log 3, which was their codex, not codex, won't be correct, algorithm from log 3 to log 4. Now, why is that? Well, the reality is the 17 stops of dynamic range requires a bit more oomph. Like, you can compress that to even 8-bit if you want to, but it won't be very wise. So they are giving you 13-bit. Now 13-bit sounds odd. Why? Because most of the camera that you are dealing with generally is having 12-bit. So why they are giving one extra bit? Well, that allows them enough leeway that 17 is mapped with high enough dynamic range where you can actually tune it. If you clamp it too much, it becomes difficult. And the log file, it can allow you to recover some extent of it, cannot recover, it's not a lossless process. So why the heck we have that issue? Because majority of the camera sensors that you're dealing with is generally 12-bit. Like 14-bit is the analog to digital converter after the sensor is 14-bit. This puppy uses 18-bit. Now, is it Uncommon, yeah, it's not used in cheap things. It's very expensive, electronically expensive to do. So 18-bit linear sensors are done. Now, benefit of that, it gives you absolute data. Consequence, yeah, it's very wasteful in terms of megabytes. So this camera goes up to around 2 gigabyte per second read and write. If you actually try to do 18-bit linear file, yeah, bye bye. You are maybe looking at like around 5 to 10 gigabyte per second read and write. So for that reason, it's just illogical to use 18-bit linear. So 13-bit log allows them to port that data and arrange it properly, so you get full skin tone and you still get highlight roll off without frying the sensor. Without, like, basically when you are watching it in a screen, it won't look like, hey, that part is burnt out. So that's why they wanted this awkward resolution. I'm saying bit depth of 13. Now, it has world's best dynamic range. This is the testing data that people have done. And be mindful, companies have been claiming 16 stop plus. Most of them only have quality, basically bit depth, I'm saying dynamic range of 12, like where noise to ratio, signal to noise ratio is good enough. This puppy has more than that. This is like clear signal to noise ratio until it goes to this file, basically noise floor. So there is no competition. This is genuinely the best at this point in time, even better than cameras that you can buy, as in still camera. This is like shut up, take money. It's not even comparable to other video camera. And you're like, what about HDR? There are some ways of doing HDR that will exceed this, but none of them are single sensor. And if single sensor can do this, there is some benefit to that. So Arri is genuinely flat out like, we are here, we got this. Like, think of it this way, like how the heck Arri was still relevant where they were still stuck at 2K. That was the reason. They always had very good dynamic range. This time it's like, allow me to remove everybody. So Arri's reference tool is like a very new sort of software ecosystem where people were bitching about, hey, why the heck you have one tool for metadata handling, one tool for crunching, one tool for editing. I was like, it was too much messy. So they created new tool, Arri reference tool, all in one. They needed 3 package. So all those 3 package has been combined into one package. Now you have Arri reference tool, done, go home, sweet dreams. Really good. In terms of encoding, like, because the camera is only giving you still frames. So how do you encode it? They have also developed their own proprietary system, high density encoding. So this is more for people who have to actually deal with this for them. And they have realized that because their camera is consuming so much energy, is that they cannot satisfy this puppy properly in 12 volt. So the camera has been upgraded from 12 volt to 24 volt. Now 24 volt is not shocking nor new. It has been there, but digital camera almost went from, like, film was always 24 volt, and then they went to 12 volts because a digital camera was not consuming. But nowadays processor and sensors and cooling and all those consume so much energy, it's like went back to 24 again. So Arri has realized very early on, it's like, yeah, 24 done. We're not gonna allow you to have a system where it becomes too compromised. So 12 volt has been gone by. Now you have 24 volt. New battery mount system, which is B mount. B mount is a new open standard that people are trying to make as a industry standard, and it will have certain benefits. I'll discuss about this in later videos, but it's a new system, and B mount supposed to be far more resilient, and it has learned from T-tab batteries, V mount batteries. It has learned from all of them and created a new, more refined system. Basically, you take the best of all of them and then make a new open source so all other companies can use it. So that's 24 volt system, and it will allow them to even have a bigger lights, run the camera for longer. So this is new pipeline. There has been significant change. So this tool that we are talking about, it's a professional tool. You have to understand, this is not for YouTube video. You can do it. Like, there are same way, like there are people who are using RED cameras for YouTube production. You can use that, but this is a work tool. There is a reason for its cost. It's a work tool. And why the heck people pay that sort of prices? Well, it's with Arri reliability. Now you have to understand, digital camera, because Arri jumped so late into the game, they knew very early on that what are the pitfalls of all other brands were. They realized very early on that if we're gonna sell you a camera, it better not overheat. So from day one, they always focused on making sure the camera has reliability. How the heck they achieve reliability that other companies cannot match? Well, they did some statistical analysis and realized there is a oops period in electronics, meaning electronics came out from the factory, you sold 100,000 of them, how many of them is gonna work continuously? Majority of them. But here's the deal, the probability that any camera just randomly poofs itself is very high in the first 1 month phase. Like, first 1 month, you will have a lot of random, there won't be any reason, it will be just like poof, lol, it does not work. Has happened to me? Yes. I just bought my recent mobile phone, and the first package came out, it was just dead. Like, nothing broken, nothing shorted, nothing, it's just lol. things like this happen in complicated equipments. So what Arri does, whenever they buy something, and again, they could have changed the system, but this was their explanation, is like they actually test it. Test it as in like actually stress test that puppy for 1 month. So once that 1 month period is over, then they pack it and then they sell it. What is the outcome of that? They know with very high confidence that if you get this camera, it's gonna work. The end. Like, could still something bad happen? Absolutely. But now it will be the difference between 80% on time to 99.99% on time. Something bad could still happen, but likelihood would be so low. Like when this camera was launched, many people did not want it to jump into digital. Why? Because red created such a bad stigma around it. Why? It used to overheat like crazy. Like film shoots have been stopped because red was overheating. The image quality was there, specifically the low light, so people kept on with it, but it pissed off a lot of people. It's like nobody used to think about overheating equipments. So Arri, from day one, they were like, okay, for even in this model, this is their air channel, so to say. It has fins, it has fan, and this chamber is completely sealed from the body, meaning if you even pour water into it, let's say the camera was out and water flowed into it, water will just drop out. It will not touch electronics. The electronics is completely sealed in the chassis. There is no, basically the air path does not go inside the sensor block. There is no, basically isolated while having thermal conduction. So benefit of that is very thorough cooling without having dust issues. So people have used this sort of camera in desert environment, no problem, no issue. And how the heck they maintain such a good color output? Sensor is Peltierly cooled, meaning there is a Peltier device on the sensor unit that cools itself. Benefit of that is like if in the cold environment and the sensor drops below the optimum temperature, they will heat it up. If they are in a hot place, India, the sensor will literally cool itself to a perfect temperature, which we do not have access to. Is like they know what the temperature should be, and it will consume energy to maintain it. And because this has such a high heat sink, it can actually dissipate it and keep the sensor cool for long enough. Benefit of that, continuous running without having the color temperatures or white balance, all of those will not shift, and it does not even require a black calibration. If you buy cinema cameras, majority of them have black calibration, meaning you put a lens cap basically and you just shoot for a few minutes, and then camera uses that cooked pixel data to recalibrate itself. Like, let's say you are doing it in a broad daylight, it will be a bit hotter, so you want that real-time sensor data. For that reason, that's an extra step that people do. This is like, bro, it's temperature compensated. You do not have to worry about it. But there is a consequence of having a giant ass cooler there, is that it does consume 100 watt hour per hour. Meaning, if you have a battery bank that is 100 watt hour, is only going to give you 1 hour. And I'm being optimistic, most likely it's going to give you 55. So it does consume power. That's the penalty. But be mindful, most movie shots, scenes are only shot in takes. That takes are barely 5 minutes long. So it's more than enough time to swap batteries. And again, the battery has been designed in such a way that it can be stacked. So you can have one big battery and one small battery. So the moment small battery runs out, you pull it out, put a new big battery one. You can keep daisy chaining as long as you need to. And you can see that like they are very thorough with their testing. And you can compare this to red cameras, and when first batch of YouTubers jumped into it, how many of them have complained with the card not reading? It's like, and this time they're like, nah. When we say this is the stuff, this is the stuff. So yes, it does justify the cost. It's justify it for you or not, that's up to you. Because be mindful, while it is true and it is genuinely solved all the cooling and heating problem, now it is most other camera company have caught up to this sort of reliability. And many Sony cameras have such a good body. If you have even a small USB fan running, you do not have to worry about it. Like even in India, you do not have to worry about it. Some have active cooling. Those are like, bro, we do not have to worry about it. Not as reliable as this, but more than good enough. So there is a point of diminishing return. But for people who are like, hey, I'm dealing with multi-million-dollar shoot, I ain't gonna oops it. So this is what it is. And you are buying into a pro ecosystem. For example, their lens ecosystem. Now, what is so unique about this lens? Because you can buy a hyper cheap lens compared to this puppy from all brands, Canon, Nikon, and Sony. Well, you have to know that whenever photographic lenses are built, they are designed to be hand carried, meaning you should be able to do this. So they are made as small as possible. How do you make it as small as possible? You make sure that each glass element is bending light as much as possible. So you have entry and you bend that puppy. Whenever you bend the light through glass, that aggressively, it separates out the color, what we call fringing. The color goes like purple starts to come out, pink starts to come out, fringes, because again, red is not bending, is the same way blue is. You can remember your prism class from school. That's why all the elements, glass element used in the prime lineup, they are so, they gently bent it rather than like, wabam. They're like, hey, benefit, genuinely preserve the color information before it goes to the sensor. Like, there is subtle thing, does add exponentially large amount of cost, but people who pay for it, like the big screen experience, they are like, shut up, take money. So you are buying into that pro ecosystem whenever you are talking about these sort of equipment. It's not just like, it's just a camera. Again, it is like, you can still shoot an amazing video, amazing movie out of many much more cheaper camera. Heck, Top Gun is not shot in Arri or Red. It was shot in Sony, and it was genuinely good, mind-blowingly amazing movie. So it's not the tool, but like, there is a reason for this tool. Think of it that way. So this was my presentation on basically Arri's new 35, Arri Alexa 35. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please hit the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.